We've had a very interesting webinar about a building block we have, the Akkermansia mucinifila, about its role in the microbiome. The more experienced practitioners will recognize that the Akkermansia is very often very low in the fecal analysis results. And I saw that so often that I was wondering if what we measure in the fecal analysis is representative for what is happening in the gut. Dennis, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, Karen, indeed, Akkermansia is often quite low. Here on the right-hand side, you see the typical BioVis analysis result with some limits, the lower and upper limit of the normal range. What we know from data analysis of more than 3,000 fecal analysis results is that more than 80% of the people score below the lower limit of the normal range. But even 12.5%, about 12.5% score at the lowest limit of the range. So indeed, Akkermansia is quite often very low in the fecal analysis results. And the question is this representative fecal levels of Akkermansia and representative of the levels inside the gut, because Akkermansia lives in the mucus layer. And there have been some studies that compared those. And here's one example. Here, the Akkermansia and some other bacterial species have been sampled at 2 locations inside the gut, in the mucus layer, and also in stool. And here you can see that the abundance in the number of cells in the mucus layer is actually in the same ballpark as the number of Akkermansia cells in the stool sample. So, and the stool sample is actually even a bit higher. So, based on this and other studies, we can conclude that the levels of Akkermansia in stool are in fact representative for the levels of Akkermansia inside the gut.
So Dennis, you've told us already that the Akkermansia lives in the mucus layer, but maybe it's good to dive deeper into the mucus layer. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, Karen, there are quite a few things that we can tell about the mucus layer. We dove into details in our webinar, but let me give a summary here. Mucus is being produced by goblet cells in the epithelial layer at levels of about 10 liters per day, so huge volumes. And it's being produced continuously flowing towards the inside of the lumen. And that is one way to keep the inside of the lumen away from the epithelial layer. The inside containing the bacteria, other microbes, but also digestive enzymes. In the colon, the mucus layer consists of 2 components, the inner layer and the outer layer. The inner layer is a very densely, tightly network, and the outer layer is somewhat more loose, and in that outer layer, there the Akkermansia lives.
And what is the most important role of the Akkermansia in our microbiome?
So as I said, Akkermansia is one of the few microbes that lives in the mucus layer. It was only isolated in 2004 from a Dutch female, and it's quite abundant. About 3% of all the bacterial species in our gut consists of Akkermansia. Akkermansia is actually a mucus degrading specialist, and it can live solely on the carbon and nitrogen from mucus. And that means that it's one of the few species that actually lives there and stimulates production of mucus. As I said, it degrades mucus, but studies show that the mucus layer thickness is actually thicker when there's a high abundance of Akkermansia. And that is because Akkermansia has an interaction with our epithelia and with our immune system, stimulating the production of mucus and also the integrity of the mucus layer.
The pasteurized Akkermansia is available as a building block in the My Own blend. What are the most important indications for which we can use it?
The most interesting application comes from a study in humans in which both pasteurized and alive Akkermansia have been compared with placebo. And I brought some figures from that study. On the left-hand side, the results on insulin resistance are shown, and on the right-hand side, the results on Akkermansia abundance are shown. These are a bit complex figures, and the left axis is the actual results before and after, and the right axis shows the difference. So what we can see is that insulin resistance in the placebo group went up actually, whereas in both the pasteurized and the live Akkermansia groups had a lower insulin resistance at the end of the study. And similar findings in difference between placebo and pasteurized and Akkermansia and live Akkermansia group are shown in the Akkermansia abundance, and both the pasteurized and live Akkermansia resulted actually in an increase of Akkermansia abundance in the fecal analysis.
Dennis, you showed us that the three possible indications for Akkermansia are obesity, insulin resistance, and diabetes. Are there any other indications for which it can be used?
Yes, there are actually. And one of the other indications that it could be used for is IBD. And here on the right-hand side is an overview of some studies in both Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And in each of these studies, it has been found that Akkermansia was depleted, both in stool samples as well as in mucus samples. To name one example, one study found a 92-fold depletion of Akkermansia in ulcerative colitis patients with no active inflammation, and double that 172-fold reduction in ulcerative colitis patients with active inflammation. Other indications in which depleted Akkermansia has been found are, for example, allergies such as eczema. But any indication with an impaired mucus layer is actually linked to lower Akkermansia abundance.
So now that we know more about the Akkermansia and its function, let's go to how to use it in our practice. When we want to prescribe a My Own blend for our patients, the easiest way to do that is to fill in the advice aid. And when you score for metabolic dysfunction, overweight, mucus production or low abundance of Akkermansia, inflammation or high permeability, the chances are quite high that the Akkermansia will be in the advice, like it's here. And here you see the most important indications again: metabolic dysfunction, overweight, and inflammation. And when you press the I button, you will be lead to more background information about the Akkermansia. As always, there are a lot of interactions between the commensal bacteria and our building blocks, and in between our building blocks. And Dennis will tell you a bit more about that.
Indeed, Akkermansia is one of the building blocks that interacts with other bacteria. And here's one example of a study that showed that there is interaction between Akkermansia and Anobacterium stringeniae, previously called Eubacterium hallei. And this study showed that Akkermansia can create some metabolites such as 1,2-PDO, which can be used by the stringeniae to synthesize short-chain fatty acids such as propionate and butyrate, and in turn stringeniae produces vitamin B12 that is being used by Akkermansia. So this is one example of two building blocks that are available as components for the My Own blend. Another example is the 2-fucosylactose that can be used as nutrient source by Akkermansia directly. And another example is the butyrate generator, which contains a butyrate producing species. And butyrate is also something that can be used by Akkermansia directly.
Thank you, Dennis, for all this information. This was the summary about the Akkermansia webinar. If you have any questions about anything regarding the Akkermansia, please contact us.